before. Now you're just a jerk with a real estate license. Now, you can change that, but they need a little time to come to that. So, outside perception of who you go to and you talk to, they automatically perceive you as the expert in what you do. They have a little bit more respect for your time and respect for that. And then it gives the people who know you as a teacher, know you as the electrician, know you as a plumber, to see that you're serious about your business and that you're going to actually stick with it. So they'll watch you and they'll say, okay, 6 months later, a year later, they'll come to you and they'll be like, are you still doing that thing? Yeah, I'm selling houses, and then whatever it is you're doing. And they'll come to know you, and then their attitude towards you and what you do will begin to change and reflect on what you actually want them to see you as, because it's a transition period, because nobody was born a real estate agent, nobody was born an investor. I don't know of a kid who grew up, when they were growing up, said, I want to be a real estate agent. It was a cowboy, an astronaut, scientist, something like that. It's just not a glamorous career when you're growing up. I don't know if kids are different nowadays, but it's just real estate is usually not a primary career choice that you make. It's usually a secondary or third career choice that you make. As the same with a real estate investor. I kind of train real estate agents or real estate investors in the same manner, because we actually operate under the same principles. We actually operate under the same thing. It all has to do with property. It all has to do with identifying motivating factors and figuring out how to service our clients. Whatever service that they need, whatever service that they want, we have to figure out how we can service them and make them happy. If we can't make them happy, then we don't make any money, we don't create any transactions going on. So understanding your client's motivation. Mental is the largest part of anything that you do in real estate, because the house is there. We can't change the house. It's going to be there. It's going to be, it needs rehabbing or it doesn't need rehabbing. It's falling down or it's not falling down. So I train agents the same way, and I say, we aren't salespeople. We just provide information and provide access. And as an investor, you're doing the same thing. You're just taking that property how it is and working on it and saying, I can make this deal work in this manner, or I can't make this deal work in this manner. Realistic expectations, what I want versus what I need. And I say the fact is, I educate, I operate real estate investing a little bit different from other real estate investors. I like to go in with full information. And I'll tell them, because right now we're in an information age, and there's nothing that I can say or do that they can't get access to. So I paint a clear, vivid picture. Your house is X, you want, and I'll tell them exactly what me or my investor clients are going to do with their property. We're going to buy your property for $300,000. We're going to try to sell it for $650,000. And immediately, I know what you're saying. Why would you give them that information? Because they're going to say, I want to make $300,000. And I'd say, look, it's going to cost us about this, $150,000, $200,000. I'll tell them approximately the rehab cost. Of course, they're going to be retail numbers, and when we actually do the rehab, we might try to get a little bit of some volume discount, but I'm going to tell them actually what a retail renovation of their house will cost in order for them to get that money. In order for them to get that $750,000, you're going to have to spend $200,000 or $170,000 on a rehab, and you're going to have to pay the cost of money that it costs to maintain that, and you're going to have to pay the cost of money on that overall large purchase while it's on the market. And we're going to have to hope that the market is friendly to us and we don't miss the summer rush or we don't miss the fall rush, and we're not sitting on this property for 6 months, because all of that can actually happen. So I like to kill people with all the information that I can and be forthcoming with them, because they're going to know what their neighbor sold for. They're going to know what's going on in the neighborhood. So I like to create realistic expectations of what I'm going to give them and what they're going to take away from it. Now, when you go in, sometimes their motivating factors, which is the most important thing, would predicate that they need to do things in a faster than they can do in the long term. And this is typically the average seller's situation. Most people are selling their property for different reasons. A lot of them because they can't afford it anymore. They get job relocated, divorce, whichever it happens to be. So it's always important to dig down and find out that motivational factor, because then that helps you structure your deal in a better way. And sometimes people need more money than I as an investor can give them. So that's when the realtor or the agent portion comes back in, and I say, I can't have you that cost, that I can't give you that costs too much money, doesn't work for me, or doesn't work for my partners as a business. And that's the other thing. You can offer the seller just more options. You get the service of clients and get more referrals, because it's hard as a real estate investor when you go into a deal and you talk to them. Usually, that's it. It's a one deal. When you go into an agent, as an agent, we live off referrals. So we can drive down and ask them for more business, so you can turn that into it. And also, as an agent and an investor, you actually get to separate yourself. You get to always remain the good guy or good gal. You get to always have a buffer zone, because it's not, when I go into a property, it's not me saying it. It's I would say, I always use the wordage me and my partners or my associates and so on and so forth. So there's always an implied level of involvement, but there's always a perceived level of separation. Now, in full disclosure, if you are going to financially benefit from the property being sold, you do need to disclose that you have a financial interest in the outcome of the property. Just as from an ethical standpoint of being a realtor, you do need to always disclose that if you're going to be one of the principals in an LLC or whichever, however you're buying a property, you do need to always disclose that. But that's fine. It doesn't determine, it doesn't predicate how much of a level of involvement you have or what your actual role is. But just from a cover yourself situation, you want to always disclose, hey, in writing, I have a financial interest in the property. And most of the time, most of my investors we just use the standard realtor forms most of the time to present those forms with no agency involvement. If you're an agent, you can actually do that. If you're not an agent, you won't have access to those forms. If you have a relationship with an agent, maybe they'll help you out with the forms. Good?
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Yes. Sure.
That was interesting what you just said. So on the board forms, as an agent, you can use the board forms for a listing agreement or for a buyer without, purchase and sales agreement, contract, buyers or whatever, without you disclosing, not disclosing, what I want to say, without getting a commission or a fee.
Yes. And I do this, and there's a reason why I prefer that method, because I had a good friend of mine who, same thing, real estate agent and investor, and in a different time, there was a situation where there was some question about how a transaction went down, and it actually ended up in court. And because that person was a realtor, it came up in court that it might have been some deceptive practices being involved because they didn't use standard realtor forms. So just as a matter of practice, I just used the realtor forms and put NA. Now, in disclosure for the realtor forms and so on and so forth, in our association in this area, we use zip forms for the realtor forms that we use. Now, you're supposed to be a member of a realtor association to have access to those forms, So that predicates you using the forms or having access to them. But we usually use those forms and put NA on broker representation. So that way it's just no broker representation in there. There's a standard form is what everybody's used to seeing. If they take it to their lawyer, if they have one of their other real estate friends look at it, it's a familiar form. It is not, it doesn't have the two-page wordage that we have in our standard investor deals that sometimes they're a little bit more or perceived to be more advantageous to us just because people aren't familiar with them. That's the reason why, a large reason why they say, oh, that's never been for the investors, because nobody really wants to read the form. But if they see a form that they're used to looking at, they're going to just zero right in and say, okay, here's the price, here's the settlement date, here's that. Great, I understand it, let's go. This person's above board. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I know you know the broker forms obviously protect the broker, and that's why they were designed.
Mm-hmm.
So, as an investor, my attorney has used, you know, purchase and sales agreements to me. But I'm very intrigued by this because you're absolutely right. A lot of people are so used to seeing a board form. So, as an investor, to protect yourself and make sure that all of your contingencies and inspections and, you know, the loopholes, anything that you want to be able to use to put in there, you have to put it on the addendum.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like in DC, just use the regional contract form. And then we don't even, a lot of times we might, depending on the situation, because most of the deals that we do, we don't ask for any closing help, we buy it as is. So I might not use the 4-page addendum clauses or 6-page addendum clauses. I might just put it on the addendum. We'll buy it as is, where is. We'll be responsible for all debris, anything that you don't want, leave it in the house, and so on and so forth. If there's anything else that we want to add into it, then maybe I'll use the addendum form. And then depending on my role, I'll just disclose if I have a financial outcome of the situation or things like that.
George, I've never heard of anybody doing that, and I think it's really fascinating. It's such a great idea. It really is. So is your G card correct?
I'm PG card.
Okay. What we're talking about is PG card and G card is the initials for Prince George's County Association of Realtors. There's A card, Anne Arundel County, so on and so forth. G card is Greater Chicago Area Association of Realtors. That's the board that you're not joining. Do they have issues with it?
No, because you're as a licensed real estate agent, if you join one of the boards, that's the only prerequisite to using the ZIP forms is that you be a realtor. Because actually, when you use those forms, like in Maryland, the MAR, the Maryland Association of Realtors form, is the standard contract in Maryland. Now, if you're not a realtor, you're not supposed to use that form. That's the thing. So if you're a realtor, that's what really gives you the access to the form. So
do you prefer the MARS contract or the regional?
well, it depends on where I'm operating at. Like the MAR form doesn't work in DC.
Right.
You know, you have to use the regional in DC, and then you can use the regional in Virginia. So the MAR form is just really strictly to Maryland. The regional form is accepted everywhere. So a lot of times, most investors will end up using the regional form everywhere,
Right.
and then just use the appropriate riders if they're going to be that.
So as a broker and as an investor, you can do extensive education, I know, to help agents and investors understand what all this legalese is in these contracts, what to use, what not to use, and you provide that information. Right?
Yes, and then that's the largest thing, particularly with, and I was just going over this with a couple of my agents yesterday. Real estate is a self-motivating, self-performing industry, and a lot of people can and can't. You have to figure out if you can function without a high level of supervision, because there's nothing to keep you from getting up in the morning, going downstairs and just lounging around on the couch. You don't have to punch a clock. You don't have to be in the office at 9. You don't have to be out of there by 3. You don't have to. You have to be self-motivated. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still confused. I'm an agent. If I acquire a property, make an offer on the property, and I use the NAR, the regional contract, either one, I don't have to disclose on the that what you're saying?
No, you always have to do. Anytime you're in as an agent.
But you say it's brokerage free. You're not,
But no, you can present the contract, the form, without any broker representation. That does not exempt you from disclosure of your being a principal or a financial gain in here and there.
So I'm going to be frank. So my broker won't get a piece of the deal.
Now, that's a position that's between you and your broker and the relationship that you have with that. Now, if you're not receiving real estate commission in a deal, then it's not technically part of your brokers association. But a lot of brokerages have different rules about real estate. This is why a lot of brokerages have different rules about real estate agents being investors at their brokerage firm, because there can be a high level of business being done without the broker getting their due fee. So that has to be individually worked out between you and your broker. But in all actuality, I mean, you're a real estate agent. How many times have someone called you and just asked for CMA or some information on it, and you just said, hey, here's the CMA, here's the standard forms, just give them some blank listing agreement, blank this and that, look them over. If you decide to list with me, then we'll fill all the blanks in. There's nothing to keep that person from using that same form and just going and printing out and filling it out on their own. So that's in the same instance, that's a transaction without any brokerage representation. And actually, as a realtor, you're liable for things that you receive a fee for. When you do a brokerage service for a fee, then you become subject under to the real estate commission and so on and so forth. But if you're doing a service without a fee, it's a little harder to say that you had a different motivating factor. So it has to do a lot with how you take your fees, how you structure it, and your relationship with your broker. And that when Tammy was speaking, and she was saying that the Remaxes and the X's or the Weichert and Long and Fosters, of course they want a piece of everything real estate. Right. So that's when it comes to your relationship with your broker and how much your broker understands it. And I have a simple check and balance thing. I mean, I see the property when they're coming in, so I know which one of my agents, what we're doing with the deal. So when I see that deal come in, I know in 30 to 60 days it's going to be going out. So there's a way to monitor that, and you just kind of look at that and see exactly what it is, and just work that out with your broker and see what they, how they want to handle that. But that is a unique situation, because a lot of them are written where you would not do any real estate transaction. Just the same way, there's a lot of various situations about brokerages allowing agents to do property management, because that's the same thing. That is kind of a real estate service, but a lot of times the brokers don't like it. They have different lines. The E&O may not cover it. So there's a lot of different nuances that happen and don't happen when you get into that portion of it. And I'm a pretty common sense kind of guy, so we'll look at it and I'll say, well, what are you doing? What's that happening? Like a lot of my agents, a couple of my agents have got involved and wanted to do property management. And I said, you know what? I've actually had agents, I say, I respect what you're doing, because I don't even want to have it on the E&O. And it's really dependent on the agent. Some agents I don't. Some agents I might let do. And I would help them. I would actually help them start an LLC. And I say, you advertise and do all your property management under your LLC, and that's your business. And I don't want anything to do with that. So you keep me out of it. I might have them sign a statement on it that any property management services that they do are not affiliated with the brokerage. If they ever represent that their property management services are under the umbrella of the brokerage, they are liable for anything that kind of comes out of that. Now in DC, you have to have a property management license if you're an agent. So that's different. But in Maryland, there's not an actual property management license. I'm not sure about Virginia. I don't know if you actually need a property management license. I only know in DC, that's the only one that requires one. So I don't know. Did that kind of answer your question? It's not a real answer, but it's best I can do. Not knowing your situation with your broker. As when you're going in and you're representing as an agent, and as an agent slash investor, the information is usually given to you a little bit more easier. You know, you're not the big bad investor. You're here to facilitate a positive outcome, and that's the honest truth. I walked into, back when we can do subject to deals, I got a call. I walked into a house and I said, here's what your house is worth. Here's what you have to put into it to get that money. Here's what your house can sell for as is. I kindly gave him a list of what I recommended that he do to get the property up to market. I helped him out. I said, I can even help you give you some cost items. And he said, I don't want to do it. I ended up in a subject to deal with that homeowner. He actually let me kind of take over his mortgage, and I kept the property for about 2 years. He moved on, then we ended up selling the property. He got his agreed upon amount. The mortgage company got paid, and it was different. I mean, and it just worked out. So that's a deal that started out as a real estate agent, but then I ended up facilitating that and working it on the investor side of it. So there's a lot of things that you can do to help boost your marketing that way, and the information is given to you a little easier. We're always perceived to be nicer than the investor, you know, because the agents were nice. We usually have some nice pictures. We usually smile a little more, and have a little bit more, have a colorful website, you know, just kind of is there. So we have a higher level of trust than an investor. And again, all of this is to say we still need to kind of let everybody know what's going on, but there's always anything that you can use to have a better perception, a better outcome, more options. Use it. It could work to your advantage. So use every advantage you have. And I just have my slide PowerPoint up here just to kind of go over some talking points. So to make sure I didn't miss a couple of things that I wanted to go over, but I want to kind of get some interactive questions and see exactly what it is that you guys think a realtor or agent can do that an investor can do, and if you have any particular situations where you think it might work, what do you have going on now? What kind of twist would the real estate agents who are here put on some marketing that they might do in order to facilitate becoming an investor? Both of you guys are realtors, right? Who raised their hand that they're a realtor? I know that you are.
I'm an investor.
Investor, okay. Is anybody actively agent? Oh, those two guys, right? Now, what would you do as an agent to help build an investment business? Now, are you strictly agents, or are you investors and agents? Investors and agents? Investor first and agent. Now, have you ever used your agent status to help you get better access to a investment deal?
Agent, you don't have to call the agent because sometimes agents show the properties and stuff. That time the property will be gone on the market, so you have that access when you're an agent.
It was just saying that you have better access when you're an agent.
A lot faster.
A lot faster?
I mean, you can look at any time.
Mm-hmm.
As you have to depend on the agent, so you can be showing the property somewhere else.
Another great thing is if you're an agent that you can do, you can market to a neighborhood, and you can just say sell your house for whatever the last rehab house sold for. And when you get the calls in there, then you can say, great, I can sell this house for that amount if you do X, Y, Z, or if you want this money. It's a very unique situation, particularly for me, because I have the ability to go into a house and I can talk to them about what they need to do to get the house to market. If they need help with the renovation, I can actually help them with the renovations if that's what they need to do. If they just want to sell it as is, I can help them that way. If they want to sell it to an investor, they can help that way. So it really increases my chances of when I go into a property, I'm going to be able to walk away with some form of income, some form of a deal, some way to stay involved in that transaction, no matter what they particularly want to do with the property. So it's great. It's just a great opportunity to be able to maintain control of the deal and walk in and have a high percentage of closure rate. There's a big difference when you walk out the house and you're talking to 10 people and none of them equate to any compensation for the time that you spent talking to them, except for when you get to go out and actually be able to facilitate some kind of outcome that's going to be income related when you do that transaction. So any other questions? No other questions? Okay. I think we have some time. So, okay.
This is more of a comment, I guess.
Okay.
I was kind of thinking about, okay, should I try to become an agent? But I guess my hesitation. Oh, sorry.
Okay. She was thinking about trying to become an agent, but her hesitation was.
My hesitation was that I understand that you have to do a minimum amount of retail business, I guess, in order to keep your license.
And she said her understanding was that you have to do a minimum amount of retail business in order to keep your license active.
So I guess that, I mean, it's not really a question, but I don't know if you can address that at all.
So it's not a question, but to address that, no. You don't have to do any amount of, and it depends on your relationship with your brokerage. Some brokerages will not allow an agent to stay on staff or stay employed there if they don't have production numbers. I have an agent of mine. He's actually one of my old partners. We used to do a lot of investing in Baltimore together. And he's an agent. He's literally never done a deal. He's never participated in a real estate transaction deal as an agent ever. Anything that comes up, he refers to me. He's referred me short sales. He's referred me, he referred me a deal that he couldn't get the seller. They wanted more money than he could do as an investor. He just said, George, just help him sell it. So, that's a personal relationship with your brokerage and how they want to do it with you. Now, I have agents, so I will allow some agents that stay on board and not actually do transactions. There are other things that you can do if you don't ever physically want to be able to sell real estate. You know, you can still use some other techniques to gain access to the information, but from an income standpoint, if you can do a deal or two, the average transaction in Maryland, my agents usually make about, on average, I would say about $6,000 per deal they do in Maryland and DC. I would say it's probably average about 12, 15,000. So if you're there and someone says, "Hey, I need a house," sometimes that's 2 months of a hard money payment. If you know what I'm saying, just to keep it on, that's a hard money payment that you can make and be like, I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to sweat when that first contract falls through, and I have to put it back to market, and I know it's going to be another 30 days, and I have to deal with the market, the property now being a little still on the market. So it depends, and some people just honestly can say, I know I will never want to help anybody sell a house, and that's your prerogative. But why close the door to another avenue of income if you don't have to? and why open it if you don't have time, and why open it. So that's a personal kind of struggle within. So I've always just, I started that way. I actually didn't get into a lot of the retail real estate traditional buyers and sellers until after the market crashed, because I got in, had a good year, started buying properties, got priced out of the market, loved buying properties, went up to another market where the prices were a little bit more, worked up in that market for a while, then when the market crashed, came back down and actually started building a retail real estate business. So, you know, that wasn't my intent at all, but after that, I'm like, well, I have to do something while the market figures itself out, and we can't, you know, because I got hit with everything that you can get hit with. I was holding property and ready to go to settlement when they changed the 90-day seasoning rule. I was holding property ready to go to settlement when they started talking about you're making too much money. Now you have to go in and draw up everything. We want permits and documents and all of this stuff. We want before and after pictures. How can you have before pictures if you didn't know you needed them? You know what I mean? So I was actually holding property in the middle of selling property there. So we had to, you know, dig down and get creative. We banded together. We sold each other properties to create values in the neighborhood. One of the reasons why we can't, as real estate agents, talk to appraisers anymore. I've met the appraiser and pointed out the rat in the attic before. I've met the appraiser with some donuts and lunch and said, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the comps. Why don't you try these, my friend? You know what I'm saying? So there are all these things that we can't do in the market. I know where they came from, you know, but back then it was nothing wrong with that, you know. But now we are in different times, so to be able to understand it and know where the market trends are going, sometimes it can help you get ahead of it, you know, because you know, as an investor, you definitely won't get all the legislative updates about what's getting ready to happen. You won't know when you need to get out of doing something, when you need to change your practice, because they will change your practice while you're doing it, make it retroactive that you can't do it anymore, and then come back and pursue you afterward. You know, I mean, I've had friends who had, you know, we weren't, my group that we were in, we didn't mutually decide to disband. The lawyers came in and they said, disperse this group. You know, if you guys have ever had any linkage between each other, we're having issues with arm's length transactions, because I'm in a consortium and we have billboards and all of us are on LLCs together. So we've done business together, and so we're so intertwined we couldn't separate ourselves. You know, so if we didn't know about all the legislation and keep up with that stuff, which as an investor you don't get all that information all the time, we wouldn't have known when to get out. And they were like, get out. And I got out, and that's when I came on down, and I said, let me build up a business. And I just sneak back into the city and do what we needed to do. But you know, we stayed. We were able to stay and able to solve something, and I had to separate myself from real estate investing. You know what I mean? I had to, you know, I had to just make myself do other things, and that's when I drove down and built that real estate business up, and I built my contracting business up for the day to come that I knew I would get back into the market when they started figuring out and making it a little bit more favorable for, you know, the old guys to get back in. And the time has come where the market is now friendlier for, well, it's more understanding. It's not necessarily friendlier for investors, but it's more understanding, and it's a little clear about what we can't do. Because back then, it wasn't clear we couldn't do something until they said, that's not right. And it's like, why is it not right? We just don't like it. You know what I mean? I had hard money lenders say, you are making too much money. How can somebody tell you you're making too much? We don't like this because of the spread. We don't like it because how, you know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the whole Baltimore market thing and the whole flipping thing that went on there. Huh?
What's so hard about Baltimore all of a sudden? It seems like that's where everything's going right now.
It's not that Baltimore's had the. You get if you're operating down here, the average deal in DC, it's hard to get into a deal in DC under $300,000. It's really hard to get in a great deal in DC under $400,000. Period. So, like I said before, when I was functioning down in here, I was buying houses, and then it became where the house prices were so high that you couldn't do anything where the Baltimore market is there. And that's just what's happening again now. We're getting priced out of the market here. You have a $500,000 buy-in and closing costs and all that associated with that. You know, that's $5,000 a month. You have a bad 2 months, or you have a 1 month contract delay, and next thing you know, 20 grand of your profits getting eaten up. You go up to Baltimore and you buy a property, and you know you have a 2 month delay, and now you're woo-hoo, you're out of 2 grand. You know, so it's just a lot easier to function in the market where the price point is lower. It's just higher to buy in. You know, but all things in the thing I find that all things in real estate investment are proportional. So your profit margins in Baltimore are proportional to your profit margins down here. It's because your cost is lower up there. The profit margins are just they equate out. It just costs it's more to, you have to pay more to play down here. So it's not that Baltimore is hotter, it's just that it's just cheaper to buy in. And then of course, if you get into the speculative end of the market, when you start saying speculating and the developments coming, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Baltimore, and there was in Evanston Village, there was supposed to be that development coming down the hill, and I had 4003, 3819, 38. I had like 5 properties in Evanston Village, and we had them right there. I mean, you could literally be on the porch, look up, see one there, look down, see one there, go around the corner. We had all those properties, and the development never materialized and came on down like it was supposed to. And I liken that to Southeast at the new headquarters. You know, down there where you
Homeland.
the Homeland. And you know, the same thing. I got with a bunch of people there, and the same thing. Speculated the market. It's going to open in 2 years. You buy some property, you're holding it for a year. Then all of a sudden, now the Coast Guard's coming, and other people might come. We don't know when it's going to open. So now I have friends who are holding property about a year past when they thought it was going to be prime time. Are they willing to sell the properties now? They might be. They might be. They might be. I mean, now you know, at this point, if they still have it and they didn't lose it, they're committed. They've held on. They've held on too long. You know, right now, you're about a year past when you thought it was going to be open. So if you committed and did what you needed to do for a year, you're probably going to hold on to it. And in those areas, if you bought the property and renovated, there's a quality of tenant that you're not going to get there that, you know, is going to make, you know, it has to do with the area. When you go into areas that are quote unquote emerging, you're speculating the market. You could win big or you could lose big, or it can stay the same. So, you know, a lot of times it ends up staying the same due to the political climate, but you can win a lot. Now, you obviously, if you go into a more established neighborhood, you're going to pay a little more to get in there. But you have a better guaranteed outcome, or a more likely outcome, something that you can predict. So it depends on how aggressive you want to be as an investor, how many chances you want to take, and you know, what can you afford to play with. So how much time did she have? Let me do it now. Let me do something. I was out doing a bunch of I was just looking at a bunch of different presentations and stuff that I had, because I've done a lot of presentations over the years, and so I just found this one and I said, this looks like a fun one. We used to do daily evaluations about what to do when the phone rings, because particularly when you start off as an investor, and you know, I was one of the We Buy Houses guys. I was one of the bandit size guys up there in Baltimore. We had a good racket going on. We had burner phones, the prepaid phones, and we had them all out there. We would literally have, it'll be a corner of 4, and it would be 4 signs on the corner, and all 4 of us, and it would be, all the signs would have different numbers, and all 4 of us would be together. And we would do the whole, we would go in with the you good guy, bad guy investor. And we would go in and I would say, you know, this house is this. I'll give him a low number. My buddy will go in and he'll give him a higher number. And we would go in and then we would partner up on the deal and get it there. So we used to have to do a lot of phone things and phone evaluations and things like that. Back then.
No wonder you had to get out of town.
No, that's just how we used to do it. That was in the investment group that I was in at the time, which no longer exists.
They may yet indict the financial geniuses behind our last meltdown.
Yeah.
But I could argue that, I can see somebody arguing that what you were doing was basically lying to people about what the true value of these sorts of things.
No, it's
Yeah.
well, let me defend the point. Let me defend the point. Everything that you do in real estate, if you do it in writing, is public knowledge. No one is forced to take a deal. And I know investors that frequently, often, always overpay for property. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know investors that frequently, always, and often lowball property. I know investors that are fair. So if I have a difference of opinion of value and what I think the property will come by, we had a policy. We would leave the paperwork with them, and we would actually, you know, everybody had, this is America, everybody had their right to do due diligence and see exactly what they want to accept, not accept, pay, not pay. I don't practice in that same arena. I have a different philosophy toward real estate investing than I had back then. I was taught some different things that I've decided not to include into my practice going forth. But even now, that's no different than that's standard market, standard industry practice. And it's usually like, even when if you call the roofing company to come out to do the investment, the one that come there, the first guy that comes to your house is always going to try to sell it to you at a higher price. And the second guy who comes in a week later after you refuse that is going to cut it almost in half or almost in a third. So it's always up to, his onus is always up to the person, to you, to do your homework and do your research.
I understand what you're saying. You've got a campaign where you put out different numbers so that here's who's different companies. You're saturated. You understand what I'm saying?
No, they were different companies. They were different companies. Now, this is a room here. This is a group here. And we would have a marketing thing. We would say, what do you guys want to do for marketing? And we might say bandit signs. We had a printer. We get out there and put the bandit signs. Some people did printers, some people did postcards, some people did other things. Now, if we did our daily valuations the same way, it's always that.
Not to belabor the point.
No.
You know, Apple just made a settlement for price raising, right? Apple said we're going to bring out these nice little devices. We're going to download books. We're going to download music. We decided that we're not going to pay more than $2 for this book or this music. That's the price we're setting. And so they went to the publishers and said, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do it at $2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sounded like normal standard business practice. They set a price they thought was fair, and everybody's going to be happy. And the publishers said, well, yeah, we did agree to that, didn't we? And I guess that is conspiracy. Yeah, here. The lawyers just said, don't even argue it, you'll lose it. Because everybody got together and fixed the price.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really price fixing because Apple just said, we wouldn't need $2 is a good price, people will pay it. Let's go do it. And so, in essence, what you did is you have a relationship. That's why you were like getting out of town. We don't know each other.
Well,
you had these different businesses, but they're the only ones you could go to. You guys. No.
We didn't own the market. See, that's the difference between Apple and everyone else is they control the market, so there's no other option for anybody to go to. You see what I'm saying? That's the difference. When you control 100%, yeah.
But if you're really successful, as you're saying, you're basically ending up controlling it. It's hard for somebody to find not one of your guys. It's hard to know they're not.
That's the difference. They're parallel groups. There were other groups, and my business practice was not always in agreement. And what we would commonly do in a deal when people would find deals, we would actually most of the times, depending on what we were in our situation, we would buy a lot of the deals from the other investors if they got it there. So we didn't have full control of the market. You're talking about the option where you have no consumer, no other competition. We didn't eliminate the competition. There always was competition. We buy houses, the ugly houses that Caveman got, they've been around. So,
I understand what you're saying, but as the more these transactions start happening, then it gets questionable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I agree with you. And like I said in the beginning, I said I'm an old guy, and some of the things that we used to do are frowned upon now. Some of the things that we used to do that were perfectly fine then may have not. They've been deemed that they're not which other. So there's always different ethical and legal boundaries that you have to figure out where you're going to operate within in your business. And that's why I said since then I have incorporated different practices, and I go in a lot more with full knowledge. And I give a lot of full knowledge to the people that I deal with, because I just simply want them to know, we're going to buy your property, we're going to make $200,000. This is why I feel we should make $200,000. If you understand it, great. If you don't, maybe we need to come up with another option. That's probably a better way than the way it used to be, but you can't change the way that it used to be. We just have to figure out which way and how we're going to operate our businesses now. You know? You know what I'm saying? I agree. I agree.
To, dissolve your relationship.
Well, no, because it was primarily because of arm's length transaction. It was primarily because of unjust influence on property values, which didn't have anything to do with the way that we bought it. It had more to do with the way that we sold it. You know, that was the real reason that they said, you know what, probably shouldn't, go with that. And in Baltimore City, ready? All right. We won't get to do the little phone exercise. We'll go on through it. Oh, okay. Oh, nothing. I didn't know if when I kind of finished up that, then we were just kind of talking a little bit, and I just was going to go through a phone exercise. I didn't know how much more time I had, and then we got into a little healthy conversation, which I always like those conversations, because it's just nice to see how the things change and what you do now, and just kind of go on there. What
today I came here based on the website. It says Contractor's Guide to Fix and Flip. That's what I was expecting to hear.
Okay.
Right? It looks like that didn't come up. I mean, did I get it wrong?
You wanted to hear about the contractor's guide to fixing and flipping.
Oh, okay, because when I came here today, that's what I was expecting to hear. I didn't know it was, some was done on Wednesday, you know, because, all right. Okay.
That was advertised today.
Okay.
That's the reason I came here.
Terry, how are you feeling? You got some time? All right. Well, what I'll do is, I'll just kind of go over. I'll glaze over what I did on Wednesday. And we'll talk about the contractors thing that I did on Wednesday. If it's okay with everybody, we'll skip the phone thing, and I'll kind of just go over the points that I had. A lot of them are started off kind of the same, but. Yeah. I'm just gonna. See what I have on Wednesday, what I kind of went through was a basic outline. You know, we already talked about me. No stuff I did. What I kind of was explaining to everybody on Wednesdays that I kind of was speaking a lot about 203K renovations, and I was doing a comparison about how the 203K renovation product is almost a mirror image of a hard money loan product. So we were going over the renovation thing, kind of identify what a 203K loan is. Does anybody know what a 203K loan is? Not the guys who were, okay, all right, well, 203K loan is purchase, price, and renovation wrapped around into one loan. If you have a house for $200,000, and this is an FHA product, so it's really done for homeowners. So if you buy a house for $200,000 and needs $50,000 in repairs, now your mortgage is based on $250,000. You go to settlement, $200,000 is given is sent to the title company a settlement to pay for the purchase of the house. $50,000 goes into an escrow fund, and you and your contractor meet and give the agreement of the budget, and then it kind of gets drawn down from there. So I do a fair amount of 203Ks because I'm a relationship guy, and building my relationships in real estate, I was asked by a couple of my real estate industry partners to get my home improvement license so that I can start doing 203Ks, because with a 203K, the contractor needs to be qualified, have insurance, have proper licensing. A lot of jurisdictions have some bond requirements. And the biggest problem with a 203K contractor and any renovation contractor is their ability to finance the project, because on a 203K project or on a hard money project, if the project's over a certain amount, you usually get no money up front. So if I have a $60,000 job or a $100,000 job, I only get paid on work that I perform. So if I got $14,000 worth of windows, I don't get paid a dime for the windows until they're actually in and installed, and I can bill on percentage complete. So what I did, as I kind of talked about that process and how it worked, and I gave a couple of examples. I started with kitchens, and I said, this is a kitchen here in Fort Washington. This was in Fort Washington, and they put about $26,000 to $30,000 into this kitchen. It's a colonial house that was bought, and the kitchen was gone. So you put a kitchen in, she put a gourmet kitchen in, and then this was another house in District Heights that was redone, and they put $13,000 in. And then what I talked about was the variances between how to start beginning to dig down and control your construction costs. As you see, both kitchens both had stainless steel. One kitchen obviously was larger, but the budget was double. and it has a lot to do with product selection. So I went through, started talking about different types of products that you can select. The appliance package on the first house was about $7 grand because it was induction this, all these refrigerators. The appliance package on this house was about $3 grand. And I started talking about how do you determine your real estate costs. You start preliminary, evaluate, do you know how to measure? That's the biggest thing. The most important tool as a real estate investor, if you're going to do a renovation, is your tape measure. Know your measurements. Measure out your house, your rent size. Everything is in unit prices. If you tell me you have 100 yards of carpet, then I'm going to ask you what grade you want, and I'm going to know, and I'm going to ask you what grade do you want of carpet. I'm going to ask you how many stairs you have, and I can immediately give you a price. And I can tell you the quality of carpet that I'm going to get you. I know what Home Depot charges per yard. I know how much Home Depot charges. They charge you 49 cents a square foot to remove carpet. Home Depot advertises free installation of carpet, but they sell it to you at 22 yards. $22 a yard for the carpet. I can get you the same carpet, usually at a cheaper price. They make their money on the tear out and rehab. So I started talking about that, measuring. Will you spend the time that it takes to price out these improvements yourself? Are you going to do what you need to do in order to make this thing? I encourage all investors, when they get their first project where they're going to do their kitchen, measure their kitchen. Go sit down and spend the time at Lowe's or Home Depot or any home improvement center and design your kitchen and price out your cabinets. Know what it's going to be. So when that contractor comes in and tells you it's going to be $8,000 for the cabinets, you can say, that's great. How much is your labor to install them? Okay, I have some cabinets that I like that are $3,000, so you automatically save yourself $5,000 on that renovation cost. Whereas though, if you don't take the time to educate yourself and really spend the time that you need to spend, you're not going to know that where you can save money at. As a personal business, you have to kind of dig in and actively participate in your renovation. And I said renovate to the area. You don't want to be top of the food chain. You want to be slightly above the last renovation there. You don't want to, if you're the only neighborhood, if you're the only house in the neighborhood with a third floor addition on it, you have to figure out if that's going to give you a return on investment. So typically, I try to tell people to stay within the level of renovations that are in their neighborhood. Because to be honest with you, if you're an anomaly, the appraisers go through and they appraise the property based on the area that is in. And you can get some adjustments for improvements that are a little bit better than the area, but you will not realize a large investment if it's unique to that area. You know, if it's unique to that subdivision, if that's unique to that to those comps. So you want to do that and look at your system, at the systems of your house first. When you go through, first thing you want to look at when you come into your house, you want to look at the exterior, you want to look at the roof, look for discoloration on it. The average price per square for roofs can fluctuate between $3 and $10 a square. A square is a 10 by 10 area. So the average Rambler roof will usually run you about, if it's just a straight Rambler, no pitches, just there, usually should run you in a neighborhood of between 5,000 and 7,000, depending on where you are.
You said per square foot, per square yard.
A square, when you're measuring roofing and siding, a square is a 10 by 10 area. It's 100, so it's 100 square feet. So if I say I got a 10 square roof, that's 1,000 square feet. So if I'm called, yeah. So if I call it out there, and the same thing with siding, because you know it's just like when I do carpet. You know, you got to speak the language of the person that's going to do the install. You can say I have a 50 square foot roof or a 1,000 square foot roof, But the first thing is going to be a miscommunication because the roof is going to come. He'll be like, oh, 50 square, that's a big roof. That's going to be a lot of money. No, it's not 50 square in the way that he's thinking about it. Just like with the carpet guys, and this is something I had to learn because I just like square feet. I don't care about all the square and yards. And the same thing with carpet. If you do carpet, if you talk to a carpet guy about a price per square foot, he's going to be like, he's not going to even want to. He's going to want to know the yardage. So I had to actually figure out how to do yardage. And you know how I did a lot of my pricing. And I got into the complete home renovation for other people. I was flipping for me and my partners. But then when I got into the home improvement business side of it, and I had to do it for homeowners, they actually had a choice in what they wanted. When we renovate our properties, we do it the way we want to do it. So we don't have to actually worry about a lot of different things because it's there. But then when you get with homeowners and they want different color paint and they want different carpet styles, my crews know what I want. They know the kitchen I want. They know the level of paint I want. They know how I want my bathrooms. I don't have to spend time on my renovations with my crews saying, this is what I want. It's just like the other 5 houses you did, the other 10 houses you did, the other 100 houses you did. So they know what I want, but when you deal with a homeowner, you have to do with that. You are, in essence, like dealing with homeowners. You have to kind of go in and get in there, measure out your square footages, see what you need to do. And that's the most important thing. Quick tip. If you don't always have your tape measure, you measure out a stance. And that should be about 3 feet, or you measure what your 3 feet. Lay your tape measure out at home and do a step. So when you walk through a house, when I walk into a house, if you ever see me walk into a house, you might see me hit a room. Walk into a room, and I'll immediately turn and start walking the wall. And I'm measuring the room, and I walk across, and I'll say I got this and that. So when I leave that house, I can say I got approximately this square foot of that. So I know it's going to cost me, depending on the level of floors, what it's going to cost me per square footage to resand and refinish some floors. So if I can get a good estimate of that, then I do that. And I measure the room walls because I do a lot of unit pricing. I do a lot of, I know I'm going to pay between, depending on the level of finish in the area, I'm going to pay between $25 to $40 a board finished product. You know, so I'm ripping out a basement. I can measure all the drywall in the basement, and I can say, okay, it's going to cost me about this and that to do the basement. You know, I know what before I even call my guys, because you can't always get your price. When you need to make a decision and get back to a seller about an offer that you make on the price, you need to be able to quickly establish some kind of renovation budget.
Is there any rule of thumb? I was at one of the meetings in Western said they just say whatever the living area is, $30.
I mean, it depends.
As a rule of thumb, and you usually be okay.
No, I don't like that rule of thumb because it really depends. Because I look at the house type, I look at the neighborhood, I look at the level of finishes that I'm going to have to put in it. Because, quite frankly, a neighborhood that has single level ramblers, my renovation cost is going to be a lot cheaper than a newer neighborhood with 3-bedroom brick front colonials. I know in order to sell that product, I'm going to have to put a lot more into it. And then I use the kitchen methods because kitchen and bathrooms, depending on how you do them, they drain a lot of the cost of your house. So I need to know if I'm going to put a gourmet kitchen cabinet in there. If you just use that per square footage thing, it might work and it might not. And it's a lot of the kitchen. When you look into a kitchen, look at the area that you have for cabinets. Well, 30, there's a big difference between 30-inch cabinets, 36-inch cabinets, and 42-inch cabinets. So if I'm looking at what I'm going to put into that, and I typically take the time, when I was beginning and learning, I would send them out to my suppliers, and I would make them price it 3 ways. They used to hate me because I would make them price everything out so much just to I got personally used to all my unit numbers and knowing that. And then I can go into a kitchen. I've done so many kitchens that I can be like, this kitchen right here is going to be about $15,000. This kitchen is going to be about $12,000, inclusive of everything that I need to do. And it's not because I just know it, it's because I took the time and had them design it out and had them price it each way and price it with different levels of cabinets. So I would go with, instead of doing it that way, I would look into it, I would evaluate it, I would evaluate my, like I said, exterior first when you're coming in, because that's the curb appeal. And I encourage a lot of people, if you buy a house, to do your curb appeal first. You know, get that interest going in the neighborhood, because the house can look like anything on the inside. If it has some decent curb appeal on the outside, there's going to be interest in that house there. Have your agent stick a sign up.
My biggest question is how to figure out what labor costs are going to be. That seems like it's the hardest part.
There's a couple of, the question was, how do you figure out the labor costs? Trial and error mostly. Trial and error mostly. Now,
Just to make your offer.
That's what I'm trying to. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's why I said when you measure your kitchen, you know, get a good idea of what your kitchen cabinet is going to cost. Get your granite pricing there. If you use,
I was just going to say, don't they usually say do the exterior lab? Because you've got dumpsters, you've got demolition stuff there, then you've got workers coming in and out, parking their trucks all over and stuff. Rip up landscaping, so then you have to redo it, and you have a problem, it takes you longer than expected. Now that landscaping cost, or you just left it and then put it in last one.
there's different schools of thought. I prefer, because of the way that we renovate properties and the amount of properties that we have on the market, I'm always looking for more buyers, because I would rather have more buyers in the pipeline. So I'm not going to, there's some truth to that. I'm not going to put a $5,000 landscape kit on the front of a house. I'm going to get that curb appeal together first. When I say that, I'm going to get the curb appeal together, I'm going to do it to a minimum that it looks good. A lot of times you go to a house, and if they've been neglected, they got the vines overgrown and all that stuff, and then you immediately go in and start renovating the house, and you got it looking so good on the inside, but you don't have any interest peaking from the people going into the neighborhood. Them going, I use that as a marketing technique, where that sign out front and they're calling, they'll be like, oh man, I want that house. That house is going to be I'll tell them, have my office. That house is going to be XYZ. Now I'm generating a buyer's list, and I'm saying, well, when are you ready to buy? That house won't be ready for a month. How far do you want to move? Are you willing to go here? We have a property that's on the market right now, similar to that over here. So I use that as a marketing tool in order to drive some future business there. Now, I'm not going to do anything that's going to have to be destroyed. I'm not going to paint my exterior concrete steps before they put the drywall in, you know, knowing that they're going to be walking back and forth and dragging all over it. But to some certain extent, and again, these are my philosophies, and these are philosophies that I use, and I use different philosophies towards the properties that we renovate for ourselves and ones that we renovate for customers.
Well, now that you said that, I understand. So what you're really saying in general, everybody is consider staging your exterior landscaping with an eye for marketing.
Yes.
So where normally they say just go in, do your inside stuff, let the landscaping go to the end. You do whatever's economical up front, and in your case, you can use it like a giant sign for other people or other properties.
I want that market. I want that interest. I want that peak in the market. I want people driving by, and I'd be like, you know, it's going to be about 3 weeks before you can get in that property. I want them calling me back in 2 weeks. Is it 3 weeks yet? Is it time? Can we go in there? When is that open house going to be? You said you were going to have that. If you can't wait, how about this other property here? So, you know, that's a...
No, I understand what you're doing for you. So, but if you're doing like 1 or 2 flips at a time, it still pays to consider how you can stage the exterior to generate interest, because that's a big ad side for it, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
So consider that when you're doing what's going on. pretty cheap to rip up bad weeds and stuff, put something in that looks nice, and then come back and fold it.
Yeah. And then a lot of times if you do that, like a lot of times we'll run into some yards that are horrible, and we might save ourselves a lot of money by weeding it and seeding it in the beginning while the project is going on, then that grass has time to grow without us paying for that sod cost later if we don't think about that up front. So, you know, and then is that perception of a good product, is the perception of people know that what's coming. They know what's coming. It builds that excitement, you know, that you need to keep everything going. Then I evaluate the things that sell the houses, kitchens and baths. That's what sells the houses. And we renovate to a different standard, and I say that all kitchens need granite and every bathroom needs ceramic. If you're going to do generic cabinets in the kitchen or just standard vanilla, just white tiles in the bathroom, that's not a renovation that I would personally want to be involved in. Now, if you were paying me, I would do it, but I would always advise against it. So start thinking about those things first, because it actually takes longer. You know, usually, depending on where you order your cabinets, it's usually a 2 to 6 week lead time on your cabinets if they're custom cabinets. If you're going to get some stock cabinets, you can usually grab those off the shelf. But depends on who you order from, you have that lead time. Long lead time items are things that you want to actually hurry up and order. It usually takes you about 2 weeks to get your windows in. Cheap windows or castles. You want some windows that are a little bit upgraded. You can go to ABC stores and get some decent product. A window in between Pella. They're not going to be Pella, but they will be low E argon. Spend a couple extra dollars to get the low E argon windows or energy efficient windows. You're going to usually spend about an extra $25 a window, somewhere around that, to get the low E argon. And depending on like labor costs, if you ever, I'm trying to think of that site that there's a couple of different sites that you can go in to get some average labor units per stuff, but the best thing is just you kind of got to go to it. I know. Yeah. I mean, I just know what it's going to cost me to do. Well, in short, call me to do your renovation. You know what I'm saying? But if you really want to quit, but actually, I talk a little bit later about itemization of the beds, because once you get going on the system, you want to be able to replicate it. So if you have your contractors do your line item out, then you'll know what you paid for this one time, and then you'll know if you made money, and then the next time you can replicate that. If you can drive the cost down some, you know that's even more money you make. Or if you made less money, and then then you'd be like, you know what? Maybe $700 a window might have been a little overpriced. You know what I mean? So you kind of learn what it takes and what it does, and obviously it's volume. If you're giving me one deal, your prices are going to be higher. You always tell people you're going to pay a little bit higher the first time, maybe the first 2 times. You know, show that you're going to be some repeat business. Show that you got some good referrals. Show that you pay on time. Show that you're going to stand by your product. You're going to do everything that you need to do, and then you'll start getting a little bit more consideration of pricing and things like that, because it's just hard to keep contractors around. I employ contractors. I'm always going to have work, and I have contractor problems. You know, with some of my subcontractors. It just happens. You know, they get busy, they do other things, but I would guarantee that I can say that I would most likely have less contractor problems than most other people, because they know that if I say you're out, then, you're out. And you can usually come and talk to me, and I can usually give you a 1 to 2 month projection out of jobs that we're going to do. So you can see it. You don't have to just wonder about it. I can tell you drive by it, and you know it's us, because you know that the doors are painted black, so you know we're ready to come. So, and they're already, it's just things that the contractors know, and they know what to expect and what to do. So the kitchen, then your floor covering, carpet versus wood, and you have to look at your cost of it, your average cost. everything to me, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a unit guy, unit pricing guy. So when I talk to the contractor, it's real easy for me to have a conversation with him. I had a conversation with one of my guys last night because he told me I should give him an extra $600 or something like that. And I said, that's great. I said, maybe I'm wrong. Come on in here, let's talk. Let's write down what you think, and you justify to me why you should get the extra money. Because if I miss something, I'll pay you. You know? And then we write it all down, and he's like, well, maybe. I said, so you're going to tell me that I'm going to pay this? And I have a rule with my contractors, plain and simple. If we run into problems on a job and something needs to be done, and you say it's going to be X, Y, Z, I'll tell them flat out, I will pay you almost anything you ask me to pay, up into I'm bleeding. But you got to decide if this is the last job you want to do for me. And if extra $1,000 is your exit fee, I will pay it. And that's it. So, and then I just tell them honestly like that. Particularly if something's happening, I miss something or some problems come up, I'll be like, I messed this up, I missed this. We're gonna have to work together on it. If you don't want to work with me on it, I understand. You tell me what you think is fair, and I will pay that. And I say, but you know, is this gonna be our last job together? While they're standing behind me looking at a 2-story addition that we're getting ready to put up, and they know that it don't because they were with me, and they were with me doing the measurement, and the homeowner said it out loud in front of everybody. You have this job. I'm waiting for you to get started. So there's a couple of different things that kind of come into play at it. Details that sell paint, your wood trim, your doors, just the final things, the things that really sell a house are the things that you can see. The most important things that you put into the house are your systems, that your electrical, your HVAC, and your plumbing. You can't. I don't like general guys. I don't like my subs to do everything. There's no way you're going to tell me that you're going to be a good painter, a good electrician, a good plumber, and a good carpenter all at the same time. Something's going to be sacrificed. Now, if you have a good crew and you have guys doing each individual thing, I can understand that. But the last thing I want to do is walk on the job and see the same guy pulling the wire, then jumping on the plumbing pipe, then jumping. It just, I don't know. That's just a personal thing for me. So when I meet contractors, everybody always says I do everything. I ask them, what are you good at? And if they say everything, I say that's not what I want to hear. Because there's no way that you're good at everything. You know, it just doesn't work. Write everything down and develop your system. Whatever you're doing, you need to be able to replicate it. Unless you're doing one deal and you're getting out of real estate investing forever, you need to write everything down. Your doors, costs, and that's how you develop your average cost. And then, again, back to the home improvement centers. Like, I know what Home Depot is going to charge to rip out carpet. I know what they're going to charge to install it. How much they're going to charge me to put in an entry door. I mean, it's a real simple thing. You should not be paying more than what Home Depot would charge you to do it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If Home Depot is charging you $350 for an entry door, and your contractor is coming in and saying, I'm going to charge you $500 labor to put it in, you know, it might not be the right choice of contractor that you're doing. Yeah. Now, but you have to be careful because a lot of times those home improvement centers will tell you a price and they'll get in the door, but it doesn't include a lot of things. Like when you do the Home Depot, the carpet installation is free, but they're going to charge you $10 to $20 a stair extra in labor. You know, once they get into the house. If you don't have the stuff up, they're going to charge you more to eliminate. So you have to kind of look at it and really do a research. And like I said, write down and develop everything. Kind of talked about hard money. Make sure that you renovate the minimum FHA standards. Even as the same thing for FHA and as opposed to renovating the hard money. Renovate to minimum FHA standards first and foremost. Don't don't do what you like. Do what needs to be done first, then do what you like. You know, a lot of people get fixated on certain things and then ignore something else. They'll fixate on new kitchen cabinets, but the plumbing's a wreck. You know.